Broadcasting from the Woodpecker Studio in the great state of New Hampshire. Welcome to the Sounds Like a Search and Rescue podcasts. So You Wanna, a vignette series where we share post-hike reflections, challenges, lessons learned, and essential insights to prepare you for your next adventure in the White Mountains and beyond. So let's get started. Shall we?
All right, Nick, we are here. So you want to hike the Moat mountain range?
Sure, let's do it.
Okay, very good. So do you know how many times have you actually hiked the Moats? I want to understand what your resume is as we share details with the listeners.
I'm getting vetted before I talk about mountains.
Yes,
that's cool.
Yes.
That's probably a good thing. So I've done the Moats once, and I did the full traverse from north to south back Memorial Day weekend of 2021. So it was quite a ways back, but yeah, I did the whole kit and caboodle in one bang.
Okay, well, you're going to have to dig way back into your memory bank for this one.
For sure.
Well, luckily, you were speaking with someone who has done the Moat, or has hiked on the Moats 7 times. So,
oh, wow, 7 times?
Yes,
oh, man.
I took a look at my Strava data, and I realized I've done it 7 times, and it's all in different months, so I'm almost like, this may be the first mountain that I fully grid.
That's very cool.
Yes.
Yeah, that's sort of in your neck of the woods too, right? Was it like maybe 20 minutes away or something like that?
It is. So if you're interested in hiking the Moats, then essentially you're going to be the closest sort of major area you're going to be in is in the North Conway area, which we'll talk a little bit about the breweries and restaurants and options for you to check out.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but in the meantime, so just to start with, there's only 2 trails that we're going to be talking about here. We are going to talk about the Moat Mountain Trail, which is a 9.8 mile trail that goes from the start of the hike to South Moat and then finishes at Diana's Bath, which is the ending of a south to north traverse or the beginning of a hike if you're going to North Moat Mountain. And then the only other trail that is connected to that region is the Red Ridge Trail. So pretty simple from a trail perspective.
Yeah, it's funny, when I was looking and doing some research for this, for some reason I thought there was more in that area, but there really isn't. And then the Red Ridge Trail basically is sort of from is it just past, like, or south of the summit of North Moat, and then it just connects back to the Moat Mountain Trail pretty much? Well,
so the way to think about the range is that you've got it's about a 5 mile range from summit to summit going across, maybe a little bit less. Yeah. And then you've got South Moat, which, and the whole thing about the Moat Mountain Range is that it's mostly like above tree line. And then you've got Middle Moat, which is this whole section of open slabs that we'll talk about. And then you've got North Moat. I believe Red Ridge Trail connects between Middle Moat and North Moat. So it's a little bit towards the Moat side, but it's kind of like the option to go up into the kind of nearer the middle of the mountain range.
Okay, very cool. I mean, it looks like, so you guys have touched upon them before. It looks like if anybody does want to harken back on episode 67, 100, and 114, if anybody does want to check those out.
Correct. Yeah. And I think that those episodes were likely just trail reports that I gave. So shorter versions of summaries on the hike. So yeah, definitely check those out if you're interested and you want to go back in more detail. And I guess to start off with here, Nick, do you want to just give a little bit of background about location and a little bit of history?
Sure, absolutely. So to kind of a little high level overview of the Moat Mountains. So within this range, the two major peaks, I know Mike mentioned Middle Moat, which is sort of a series of ledges. And I say the two main peaks too, because these are also the ones that are on the 52 of the view list, which is probably, unless you live in the area, probably one of the reasons why you might be looking at doing the moats. But you've got North Moat Mountain at 3,203 feet, and this is located in the town of Bartlett, New Hampshire. And then you've got South Moat Mountain, which is 2,772 feet, located in Albany, New Hampshire. Kind of north to south. That range runs west of Conway. And people probably mostly think about the moats when they're thinking about North Conway or Conway, New Hampshire. It's sort of your backdrop. It's the western backdrop to North Conway. Like if you're in sort of that main street area with all the shops and stuff and sort of the railroad, the moats are that mountain range that you can see in the distance. North Moat is the tallest and most prominent peak in this range that Mike already mentioned, is about 5 miles long. And he also mentioned the open ridgeline, which has awesome views and kind of gives it awesome views. But the ridgeline is in being open and sort of just scarred as a result of an 1854 wind-driven fire. This pretty much removed all the trees and vegetation from the ridge, and that left it with bare rock on most parts of it. So that gives you some awesome views, which is good for us hikers. Another little interesting factoid I pulled up, that parts of this range are actually comprised of volcanic rock called Moat volcanics. It's one of only a few spots in the Whites where there's actually volcanic rock. Most of the Whites are not volcanic mountains. I think a lot of people probably know that. It's sort of related to glaciers, how they got raked. And the name itself, the Moats, actually dates back to one of Jeremy Belknap's of the Belknap range, one of his early maps from the late 1700s. And he refers to the Moats as the Moat Mountain Range with the spelling Moats. And that actually is a nickname for the beaver ponds that were plentiful along the eastern side of the mountain range. So they call the beaver ponds moats because they kind of look like moats with a castle. And apparently today there's also still a ton of beaver ponds on that side. So they basically said it looked like the range was guarded by moats. So there's the Moat Mountain Range.
Yeah, and the thing about this hike is that it traverses north to south, south to north, and then when you look to the east, you've got the Green Hills and Cranmore and Kearsarge North. You've got stunning views to the east in that direction, and then to the west, you've got the Sandwich Range and the Pemmy Wilderness that you can view. And then as you look north on a clear day, you can see straight up into Mount Washington, and then pretty much right up into Crawford Notch. It's just unbelievable views all around on this hike.
Yeah, it's pretty insane. I know that the 52 of the View Guide refers to it as probably one of the most beautiful ridgeline walks in the Whites, and I think I can attest to that, even having done it one time. It's absolutely amazing 360 views on most of those open areas.
Yeah, incredible. So I think, Nick, probably what we can do is there's basically three approaches to hiking this. Mm-hmm. There is the point-to-point traverse, which you can pick your poison, go south to north or north to south. I have done this where I started South Moat and went to north, finishing up by Diana's Bath, which we'll talk about. Then you can do South Moat out and back, and then you can do North Moat either out and back, or you can do a loop with using the Red Ridge Trail. So I would say, just talking about the two trailheads that you'll be dealing with here, is the first one, the South Moat Trailhead, is on Passaconaway Road. So essentially what you'll do is head towards North Conway. You can either get to Passaconaway. The Passaconaway Road just connects between West Side Road in North Conway, or it is on the lower part of 112, the Kank Highway in Albany, and you can take the turn by the Albany Covered Bridge and then make your way down. Either direction, you can get to Passaconaway, and then the trailhead is just a little ways past the the Albany covered bridge, and then maybe about 4 or 5 miles from West Side Road. And the parking lot there has room for, I would say, maybe about 20 cars. And then if it's a busy weekend day, it's not uncommon to see people parking out on the street. And I do think that that's legal. There's not a lot of houses around that area, so I don't think you're bothering people. You do want to make sure you pull off the side of the road, and should expect that there'll be a pretty busy parking lot there in South Moat if you do get there after, say, 9 o'clock on a weekend.
Yeah, and on contrast, and you mentioned about people not minding about the parking on the southern side, but definitely be wary of the parking on the northern side. So the northern side, you have Diana's Baths. That's kind of where the Moat Mountain Trail is going to start, and that's off West Side Road in Conway. It is a White Mountain National Forest fee area, so be prepared to pay a fee if you're staying there. And definitely do not park on West Side Road. I think there's probably about 100 signs on there now. Last time I drove by there, it's no surprise, but they definitely will tow or ticket your car. I think the residents do not take kindly to hikers parking on West Side Road and behind their driveways or whatever. I know it's definitely somewhere that you got to be careful with. I don't think you want to push your luck there.
Yeah. So the trailhead for North Moat, obviously Diana's Bath, we've talked about this before, is a very, very popular, beautiful set of cascading waterfalls that attract in. It's a very easy sort of like maybe 3/4 of a mile walk in on level ground. So it attracts a lot of people that are visiting North Conway in the area. It's a very common swimming area, and you'll have a very crowded experience for the first 3/4 of a mile. So really, if you're going to be hiking on the weekends, don't expect that you're going to be able to pull up anytime after 9 o'clock and easily get a spot. It used to be that you could park in the parking lot, and then there was a bunch of people that would park out on the street. It got so dangerous that the town of North Conway had to clamp down and put no parking signs up. And they do enforce that aggressively. So if you do think that you're going to try to go on a weekend and you've got to spot a car or you want to park there, expect that anytime after, say, 8:30, 9 o'clock, you'll probably be waiting in line to get a parking spot, and you may be out of luck. People do come and go quite a bit, so it's possible, but pack your patience if you're going to do that. I suggest if you're going to be spotting a car or starting, try to plan to get there before 8 o'clock so that you guarantee yourself you're going to get a parking spot.
Yeah, there's not that I've experienced it, luckily, knock on wood personally, but I think probably getting back to the trailhead if you're going south to north and your car not being there, not a good way to end a Moat traverse. Not a good way to end the day.
Yeah, definitely don't park on the street. But so let's go north. Let's go south to north, Nick, and describe the trail, and then we'll also talk about Red Ridge and just isolating north on its own. But so the South Moat Trail, it starts off with a gradual climb. It's a pretty wide trail to begin with open forest. I describe this area of the White Mountains as close to the Pacific Northwest as you're going to find. I don't know what it is about the vibe of that entranceway or that first like 2 miles or so, but you go through this open forest with much wider trails. The trails don't have a ton of roots. They don't have a lot of mud or anything like that. They're just really well groomed, and it gives a vibe of the Pacific Northwest. Like I've been to Oregon and Seattle, and it feels that same way. There's some big pines and some interesting like open forests that it just gives that vibe. I don't know what it is. It's a little bit different than some other areas of the Whites that I've been in.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I obviously haven't done it as many times as you. I do remember it being really, really nice open forest. And I think maybe like a little river sort of cascade kind of running down part of it before you start the climb. But that's correct.
Yeah, there's a couple of stream crossings and water sources that you can utilize. So if you go in, if you want to get a water source, I think that there's a little stream crossing about a mile in from south. So you can certainly hold on starting with a bunch of water and pick up a couple of streams on the lower portion of it. But once you get over, I think it's called Dry Brook, then after you clear that, then that's really there's not a lot of options for water sources. I have seen water flowing on the lower slabs of South Moat, so you can take your chance. But I think for water, if you're gonna be filtering or loading up, then it's basically Dry Brook is your only option. And then once you get up above tree line, you're not going to have too many options until you get down below. So you really have like about 7 miles or so before, if you're going to do this traverse. It's really only that first mile or so where you have a water source, and after that, it's really like the last mile and a half or so, you'll get another water source. So make sure you load up, especially if it's a hot day.
Yeah, for sure.
So, but yeah, so essentially in the lower part of the approach to South Moat, you go through this open forest, and then you get to a point where the elevation starts to climb a bit. And I would say that's probably around, let me just think about this a little bit. Yeah, it's probably around the 1,500 foot mark. That's when you start climbing up about 800 feet or so of what starts off as forest and then eventually becomes like open slab. And the best way I can describe this is it's very similar to the open slab with views out. It has views out to the Sandwich Range, but it's very similar to the vibe that you get if you're hiking Kearsarge North. Okay. So they've got those open slabs as you get up to about 15 to 1,800 feet. And then the same with like Blueberry Ledge, Whiteface. It's got that same kind of vibe. It's got some good views and some good spots to just chill out and take in the views of the Sandwich Range.
Yeah, definitely. So it looks like it. So, and we're starting from that southern tip, but if you do just want to do South Moat Mountain, obviously that's not totally uncommon. And it sounds like even it gets hit in the winter a good amount, at least from reading the 52 of the view guide. But that'll run you 5.4 miles out and back and 2,200 feet. So not a bad peak really by the stats. I think if you're just looking to grab that for the day, that's probably a pretty short, sweet, steep day hike.
Yep. Yeah. Agreed. And and I've done it in the winter a couple times too. It's a great winter hike.
Okay.
Usually
awesome.
Pretty well packed out. The locals get out there and, it's not super, it is this, there's a steep section, there's a, from about 1,500 feet to the summit, you've got a nice, probably 1,000-foot climb there that is reasonably steep. But the thing about it is it kind of gets broken up because there's like these open slabs where you get these great views. And I feel like mentally, when you get those views, you stop thinking about like the elevation and you just take it in.
Yeah, 100%. And while we are on the winter topic, like, would you ever need crampons there or snowshoes, or like when you've done it, has it just been spikeable pretty much?
Just snowshoes and micro spikes.
Okay.
I don't think there's a scenario where I don't think you need crampons for winter.
Awesome.
There is a final climb. So you go through these open ledge sections, and then the last, I would say 200 feet of elevation before you top out on South Moat is great open views. You start to get views out to the east, where you can see like Western Maine, and you can get views out to like Pleasant Mountain.
Awesome.
And you'll start to see the Green Hills as well across from you. So you'll see Middle Mountain and Kearsarge North will start to pop out as well, which is great.
Cool.
So that's, by that point, when you get on the summit, you're about 2.2 miles, I think.
It's like,
and then,
I was going to say I think 2.7 to South Moat, it looks like.
Yeah, maybe it's 2.7. I apologize.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of up and down there. A couple of false summits. That's what it is there's 1, 2, 3 false summits, and then 2.7 miles in. And then from there, you really have, I think it is, if you're looking at 2.7 to about 5. So now you've got like 2.5 miles of just open ridge walking to do. And on South Moat, the summit's got rocks on either side. Take your pick if you want to sit on the rocks and look at the North Kearsarge North and Cranmore section. You can do that, or you can sit on the other side and look at the Sandwich Wilderness. It's just amazing views there.
Yeah, it's super cool. I remember being really impressed too, how you have a really good view into that, like looking west, I guess, sort of into the Pemmy Wilderness, right? Like you can see Table Mountain and sort of like where Attitash is. It's a pretty remote area that I don't think you really get a perspective like that from really anywhere else in the Whites. It's pretty neat.
Yeah, no, it is. It's an amazing time being up there, and I would definitely recommend. Like, if it's a sketchy weather day, if you are above tree line and you're going to be exposed the whole time. So if it's crazy wind, I wouldn't mess around too much up here. And then if there's not going to be a lot of views, the clouds are going to be in, then you kind of. If you want to go up there, you're welcome to do so. But really, like, you want to pick a bluebird perfect day for this one, because it's really like it's similar to like a Franconia Ridge or just a Bald Face. It's one of those those types of experiences being above tree line. So pick a good day for it, and then you can hang out in South Moat, have your lunch, have a snack, have a drink, and then from there it's about 2.5 miles over to North Moat. But as you go from south over to the slabs of Middle, you have like endless varieties of options to just hang out and jump, to watch yourself on like the vegetation and things like that. But you can jump from one rock to another and you can go from the east side to the west side of these slabs and all the way into Middle Moat. You've got views everywhere. So it's really just pick your favorite spot, and very much like it's a monadnock again. Like there's a million different spots where you can just chill out above tree line and enjoy the views.
Yeah, I remember being pretty blown away when we were up there for the first time. And we kind of, to your point about picking a nice day, we actually got, and I'd be remiss without mentioning this story because my friend Mike and Lori would get on me. But the first time we actually did the Moats was Memorial Day weekend 21, like I had mentioned earlier. But I was looking at mountain forecasts, and they were actually forecasting snow. And I was like, there's no way it's going to snow. Like the high temp in the valley was going to be like 65, 70. And we were coming up on North Moat in the beginning of our traverse, and we hit snow squalls. So that was kind of fun. We're all wearing shorts and t-shirts and scrambling up there, kind of layering up. Luckily, though, after maybe like an hour after that, it completely opened up, and it was absolutely beautiful, absolutely stunning.
Yeah, it is it's a great hike. So take your time going from south to Middle, enjoy the views, pick your favorite slabs, and I think it took me probably about 2 hours of just hanging out to get between south to Middle, just wasting a lot of time looking at views, and I probably took about 1 million photos. So it's definitely great. And then the thing you just have to remember is that Middle Moat and all these views does kind of lull you into a sense of relaxation, but get ready because you are going to get your butt kicked because you do have another 500-foot climb that goes. And it's not super hard, but there's a couple of scrambles. You kind of go back into tree line a little bit at the 4-mile mark, and then you go up and down into the tree line and out of the tree line, and you get about a 500-foot climb over about an 8/10 of a mile. So not super hard, but your legs are tired at that point, and you just have to be prepared because there are a couple of different rock scrambles up there.
Yeah, and I feel like there was a couple of little scrambly sections, maybe in the woods, that we had to deal with too, and probably always just a little bit wet and slippery there. Doesn't get a ton of sunlight in that like sort of dip between Middle and North.
You're right, yeah. And what happens with Middle is that you drop down about 100 feet, and which doesn't seem like much, but it's like pretty much a straight drop down, and then you go straight back up these cliffs. And there is one or two tricky sections where you do have to do a little bit of like rock scrambling, like I wouldn't say super hard chimneys, but they're there, and you have to navigate them. So nothing along the lines of like Osceola chimney, but similar in that respect. And then as you approach North Moat, this is more of what I would call a traditional summit where you've got, but it's a 360 views, but it's more of a traditional summit, whereas South and Middle are more just like pick your slab, like there's no defined, this is the summit. But North has this amazing summit. And then the crazy thing about North is that you get a better view of Table and Carrageen and Attitash, but then like the main event is really the view out to Mount Washington. And if you hit that on a clear day, it's like you could reach out and touch Mount Washington. It's probably one of the best views of Mount Washington directly up Crawford Notch that I think that you'll see in the Whites.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's one part I'll have to get back here again to see it, because when we were on North Moat, we did not have great views. It kind of was shortly after that. But like you said, I do remember it being a little bit, I guess, more of a pyramid-shaped summit. Like it's kind of a little craggy sort of thing with a top, as opposed to like you were mentioning those open ledges that are everywhere. But still, like by no means do I remember it being like there's plenty of room up there. It's not like
it's a big summit,
narrow area. Like you'll be able to find your own spot to sprawl out with your friends or yourself or whatever and have lunch and hang out.
Correct. Yeah. It's a big summit. Good views. Like I said, 365-degree views. You can look back from where you came. You can look into the Sandwich Wilderness, the Pemmy. You can look out to Carrageen. You can see Mount Washington, and then you've also still got the views out to the Green Hills and Western Maine and anything you want. So it's just amazing, like the whole day. So you're essentially getting about 3 miles of just above tree line, endless views the whole time if you hit it on a good weather day. And then from North Moat, once you decide to descend, it's a pretty steep descent. It goes down. I think you're at about the 5 mile mark, and then you go down pretty quickly. Let me see here.
Yeah, so it was like a steep 200 or so feet, and then it levels, and then it goes down, way down till basically where you meet the Attitash Trail to Diana's Bath. Well, sorry, where it meets the Attitash Trail.
Right, yeah, you're dropping 1,000 feet a mile for 2 miles once you start getting down. So it's definitely a quad burner. And the thing is that the top section, as you go down, it does get a little tricky because there's like slabs there. And my experience has been that those slabs tend to be a little bit wet. And then you've got a couple of sections where there's like loose scree, which is like those little pebbles and sand. So you do, if you have your hiking poles, make sure you're going to be using them, and then leverage the trees off the side of the trails if you need to just stabilize yourself, because there has been a couple of bad rescues in that area, and it is pretty steep and slick.
Yes, and definitely be careful out there.
Yep. So, but then from there, once you get that 2,000 foot climb down, then you've got about 2 miles of just being in the woods. Again, it's like another. You get back to that where we talked about in the beginning. It's like open forest, feels a little bit Pacific Northwest, and then you have a couple of. I think there's like 2 stream crossings. You've got the. I don't really know what they call that.
Yeah, I think it's Lucy Brook. On the map. Okay, Lucy Brook.
Yeah, so you cross Lucy Brook, I think 3 or 4 times, and then from there you actually do. Now that I'm thinking about it, so the Moat Mountain Trail actually does change into Attitash, Diana's Bath Moat Trail. So, but it crosses Lucy Brook a couple of times, and then there's another river here, which I can't remember the name of. So, but I'll put that in the show notes when we get a chance. But yeah, there's a bunch of river crossings there. So you got water sources, and then I don't ever remember any of them being that sketchy. So I think it's generally okay. I mean, if it's running hot, you got to make a choice. But I think that generally, like as you get later in the summer, it's not a problem.
Yeah, another shout out too, if you're doing this later in the summer, there's nothing better than if you got like a hot summer hike and you're ending with a bunch of places to like dip your feet in or chill out at. Like Diana's Bath has plenty of those. So if it's a hot day, you can get your reward at the end of the trail doing a south to north traverse of the moats.
Yeah. It's also, you can get like a little bit of like street cred too when you get to Diana's Bath. If you're like, make sure that you rub a little dirt on your face and make sure that you really stand out as a hiker, because people are there with their rubber ducky floaties and stuff like that hanging out, and if you walk up with your real hiking gear, they're going to be impressed. So, but yeah, dip your feet in. You can go swimming, whatever you want, and then the last probably 3/4 of a mile is nice flat groomed trail. You will get a little bit annoyed because people are like taking up the whole trail. Sometimes people are litter bugs. You'll get like kids running around. So pack your patience for the last 3/4 of a mile or so. But it's worth it based on the view, and I highly recommend it. I've never done it the other direction. I think south to north is the way to go personally.
Yeah, I think if I do it again, I'll do south to north. And I do have the numbers for north to south here, but I think because of how hiking works with traverses, I think it's the same elevation game. The mileage for sure, but that'll run you 9.7 miles and 3,350 feet of elevation gain. And as we mentioned and we're talking about, we're probably talking it up, but it is regarded as one of the most beautiful ridgeline walks in the White Mountain National Forest. So it's one to be savored on a nice day.
Yeah. And then just to close this up here, there is another option for you if you want to just do North Moat and do a loop hike. You can do that using the Red Ridge Trail. So essentially, you would start at the Diana's Bath parking lot and use Diana's Bath's Moat Trail to connect with the Red Ridge Trail, which breaks off from the Moat Mountain Trail. And Red Ridge essentially... it's pretty flat to begin with, and then it starts to gain. Let me just see here. Yeah, so it's actually a great trail to begin with. So you have like 2.7 miles of essentially like very little elevation gain. I think you gain about 300 feet. And then once you get to the 3 mile mark, you start climbing like significantly. So that's and then from there, it's very similar to the South Moat situation where you get these open slabs where you start to get views. The only thing is these views are more like looking straight back into Kearsarge North, and then you start getting glimpses up into Crawford Notch and Mount Washington. And this puts you in the a little bit north of Middle Moat, I believe. And then you still got a couple of different open slabs, and then you top off at let me just see here. Where are we? Yeah, you go a little bit down.
You almost
when you
top
get
off at like a little sub peak kind of deal between middle and north.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a little sub peak between middle and north, and then you just have your last about 400 or 500 foot climb up to North Moat, and then we just talked about that, and then you loop back down around the same way. And interestingly, this hike, mileage-wise, because you have that sort of flat section in the beginning, is longer than the traverse. So it's 10.2 miles to do this hike, and I think that this is a great way to do it as well. If you prefer, if you can't get a car spot, then this is the next best option, because you could also, if you're really feeling energetic, you can go up Red Ridge, hit South Moat, and then come back across and finish up that way too.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, it looks like too they're all around like that 3,000 foot ball, but 2,900 feet of gain, and you're really not adding that much more to do a full traverse. So like you said, less mileage and like another 400 feet, and you can do the whole thing if you get a car spot. So.
Yeah. The only problem is you just need to have friends, which can be difficult for some people.
Yeah. Yes, it can. Yes. What's the terrain like on that Red Ridge Trail? Is it pretty much just slabby and everything else? I know it definitely from looking at the topo map, it looks like it's a bit steeper than probably any other section up there.
I've only done it once, so I don't have great memories. I remember thinking how awesome the beginning was. Okay. It's like 3 miles, and I flew on that. I think I got those like first 3 miles done.
Yeah, it looks very flat.
Yeah, I think I got those first 3 miles done in about an hour. Yeah, I was hustling pretty quickly on there, and then matter of fact, I'm looking at my splits here, and then mile 4 was a 900 foot climb, and it took me 48 minutes to do that section. Yeah. And then mile 5 was 630 feet of climbing. And then mile 6 was 552. But I think miles 5 and 6 took me a long time to do just because I was sitting and enjoying the views.
Yeah, understandably.
And I got a little bit of undercast on this hike too. So when I got up to, I don't know, maybe the like 2,200 foot mark or so, I started getting really above tree line, essentially, from that section, and I could look back and I was above the clouds and getting some nice undercast, which was pretty cool.
Excellent. And then I think the only thing we didn't cover yet as far as stats, if you do just want to do an out and back to North Moat and you don't want to do the Red Ridge Trail, which I imagine this is probably more uncommon to do out and back to this because most people tend to like loop hikes. But if you do just want to do that out and back, it's 8.6 miles and 2,650 feet. So, if you do choose to do that for whatever reason, you don't want to make a loop, that's what the stats are.
Yeah. I would say these are tough hikes for sure. I would say that on the 52 with a view list, this is probably one of the more difficult hikes. Not probably the top 10, I would say, but not the top 5 at this point. But the views are spectacular. I would say probably I rank this in the top 5 as far as views go for 52 with a view.
Okay, excellent. Yeah. I haven't finished I have the Bald Faces, Eagle, Crag, and Eastman left, but I would fully, out of what I've done so far, I would absolutely put it in the top 10.
Yeah, it's amazing. So, but that's it. So you want to hike the Moats. Hopefully we gave you everything you need for information about this hike, and go out there and get it. Oh yeah.
Thank you for listening. If If you enjoyed the show, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want to learn more about the topics covered on today's show, please check out the show notes and safety information on slasrpodcast.com. That's SLASR podcast.com. You can also follow the show on Facebook and Instagram. We hope you'll join us next week for another great show. Until next time, on behalf of Mike and Stomp, get out there and crush some peaks.